What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Ace from the Unlucky Bros Incorporated, and I'm coming to you with my spell counter deck, primarily Mythical Beast and Endymion. So let's jump right into it. So for our first monster, we like to kick things off with two Mythical Beast Jackals. For his effect, if I have no card in my pendulum zone, in my other pendulum zone, I can target one card I control, and I can put a spell counter on it and destroy it. And if I do, place one spell counter on that card. So, in turn, it can give two. And the fact that each time, for his regular effect, each time a spell is activated, place a spell counter on it. And then when it has three, remove it from my field and tribute this card, and I can special summon one mythical beast effect monster from my deck. So it's good for getting out multiple mythical beast monsters. From there, we do two effect veilers just for a little hand disruption. Like if I want to mess with my opponent, I can do that, and I can have it to where if I want to slow things down, I can. Instead of running three and let it get a little bricky. And next we play one Servant of Endymion for its super good in the deck. So good that it's limited to one. But each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card and remove three, special summon both this card from my pendulum zone and one monster from my deck with 1,000 more attack that I can place a spell counter on, and then place one spell counter on each. So the fact that it's a free two monsters right out the gate is pretty good. And then his regular effect, uh, if it's got a spell counter, it can attack directly. So the fact that 900 attack, not that much, but let it be to where you give him attack and just go straight in for it. You could OTK with just this one monster. And once per opponent's turn, I can discard one card, place one spell counter on each card I control that I can place a spell counter on. If this in the monster zone is destroyed, I can place it in my pendulum zone, then place the same number of spell counters it had as a monster. So either way it go, it's not getting rid of its spell counters. Next, we play 3 Magister of Endymion. And for him, each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on this card, like each other Endymion card. Remove 3, and then I special summon both this and one monster from my extra deck that I can place a spell counter on, and then place one spell counter on each. So that's really good for its pendulum effect, and I can do that on top of Servant, and then kind of float 4 monsters around the gate. And then his regular effect, when this card declares an attack, I can place one spell counter on it. So either way it go, if a monster depends on having spell counters on the field, he just gives you an extra. And once per opponent's turn, I can remove 3, special summon one monster from my deck that I can place a spell counter on. If this is destroyed in the monster zone, I can place this into my pendulum zone and place that same number of spell counters on it that it has as a monster. So that's good. A really good level 3. And if I forgot to mention, Servant is a scale 2 and Magister is a scale 8. Next, we got our level 4 Mythical Beast Garuda. And his effect, if I have no other card in my pendulum zone, I can target one other spell or trap on the field, destroy both it and this card, and I can do that once per turn. And his effect, each time a spell counter is activated, place one spell counter on this card when it resolves. When my opponent normal special summons a monster, I can remove 3 from my field, special summon this card from the hand, and then return that special summon monster to the hand. So the fact that this is literally just, it jumps on the field and just says, bye, like kind of for free, but it's really good because say for instance, if they want to go for a Dragoon, I mean, it might get negated, but it's a good chance that you're still going to be able to just bounce it back, or better yet, just deal with ancient gears That'd be really good against it. But yeah, Mythical Beast Garuda. Next, we got two Mythical Beast Jackal King. For him, if I have no other card in my Pillow Zone, I can destroy this card and then special summon one face up Mythical Beast Pillow Monster from my extra deck, except for himself. So that's good if one of the others were to get blown up and sent to the Pillow scale, they can just float back. Each time a spell card is activated, place two spell counters on this card. And once returned, when an opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, I can remove two, negate it, and then if I do, destroy it. So the fact that this is your monster negation. So if you wanted to fill your board with nothing but negation, you got it. All right. Next monster on the list is Reflection of Endymion. We only play one because I mean it's a great card, but no need to flood your deck with it. Each time a spell card is activated, place one spell counter on it. I can remove three from this card, special summon both this card and one monster from my hand that I can place a spell counter on it, and place one on each. So that's good for special summoning from the hand. Now, when he special summon, I can target one card my opponent controls and one card I control with a spell counter, return that opponent's monster to the hand, and yours to the hand, and place the same number of spell counters on this card that the return card had. When this card with spell counters destroyed by battle, I can add one Endymion card from my deck to hand. So it's good if it's looking for resources or pretty much for just floating a monster out of your hand. And it saves the time from having to deal with your opponent's monsters because just being able to return two and then reset, I mean, that's really good. Next, we got three Mythical Beast Master Cerberus. He's a level 8 spellcaster with the scales at 4. If I have no other card in my Pendulum Zone, I can destroy this card and then add a level 7 or lower Mythical Beast effect monster from my deck to the hand. And that's a good way to search for your other Mythical Beasts such as Jackal King and Garuda in order to pretty much cycle through your cards and get you a monster on board. Each time a each time a spell card is activated, place two spell counters on this card when it resolves. Can't be destroyed by card effects while four or more spell counters are on my field. So have this and Jackal King. He's already protected unless he were to get banished. Um, Once returned, I can remove four, target one monster my opponent controls, banish it, face up, and if I do, this card gains attack equal to the banished monster's original attack until the end of the opponent's turn. So that's good if you want to deal with a lot of cards that start out like maybe 3K and up. Have it to where he'll just banish them and then he'll gain it all the way until my opponent's end turn. So that's good. Next, we have Endymion, the Mighty Master of Magic. We play three of him. For him, I can remove six spell counters from my field, special summon this card from the Pilum Zone, then count the number of cards I control that have a spell counter, destroy up to that many cards on the field. Let me focus in on that. And if I do, place spell counters on this card equal to the number of cards destroyed. So if I have a full field and I special summon him, I can literally a full field with spell counters. I can destroy up to roughly five cards on the field easily, and then get spell counters. So once per turn, when a spell trap or effect is activated, quick effect, I can return one card I control with a spell counter to the hand, and if I do, negate the activation. And if I do that, destroy it. Then I can place the same number of spell counters on it that the return card had. While this had a spell counter, my opponent cannot target it with card effects. Also, it cannot be destroyed by my opponent's card effects. When this card with a spell counter is destroyed by battle, I can add one normal spell from my deck to the hand. So he's really good for recycling on top of making sure that your field is set. And as for that, that's all the monsters in the deck. Now we're going to go to the spells. So now we're sitting at 3 Spell Power Grasp, Basically, this card has it to where place one spell counter on one face-up card that I control, then I can add another spell power grasp. And the only downside to it is a hard once per turn. But I mean, you can get around with that a bit. But with that and all the cards that you have in the deck, it's real easy to get two spell counters, three, four. It all depends on what cards you have on board. And you can't play Spell Power Grasp without Spell Power Mastery. With this card, you can add one Endymion card from my deck to the hand. Then you can count the number of Spell Power Mastery and Spell Power Grasp I control, or have in the graveyard, and place that many spell counters among the cards you control that you can place a spell counter on. And you can only activate this once per turn. So that's fine, because either way it go, if you were to activate one Spell Power Grasp and then activate this, it stacks really fast. Like having what, three spell power grasp and two of these engrave and then activate this. Yeah, there's no way that your field isn't set up already. Next, we're going for a field spell, Magical Citadel of Endymion. For that, each time a spell card is activated, I can place a spell counter on this card, and if a card with a spell counter is destroyed, place the spell counters on this card. So either way go, your spell counters don't go away. It will always move to another spot. I can remove that. I can remove that many spell counters from. Oh, wait a minute. If you were to activate a card effect by removing spell counters, I can remove that many spell counters from this card instead. If this card will be destroyed, I can remove one spell counter from it instead. So either way go, it has infinite protection unless your opponent likes to banish. So keep that in mind. You might want to find a way around that. But that's where this comes in play. One secret village of the spellcasters. So if only you control a spellcaster, your opponent cannot activate spell cards. If I control no spellcasters, I can activate spell cards. So what you want to do, you want to use all your resources and then end with this. Because at least then it'll have it to where your board is set. Your opponent can activate spells like Regeki, Lightning Vortex, Lightning Storm, or anything, or even if they were to bring back Heavy Storm, um, you'll be protected for a good point. Like even down to using Cosmic Cyclone, they can't even use that. So yeah, if you want to boost it up to two, that's up to you. No pun intended. Next card is Pot of Riches. For this shiny boy, you can shuffle three Pendulum monsters into the deck from my graveyard and or face up from my extra deck, then draw two cards. I can only activate it once per turn, and you cannot special summon the turn you activate this card except by Pendulum Summon. So what you want to do, if you were to want to use this, use all your resources, but don't special summon. Then Pendulum Summon, and then use Pot of Riches. At least that way you'll still have all your resources and you'll be able to have +2 for the turn. Next, we have Magician's right hand and Magician's left hand. Now with this, it's very technical on how you want to do it. You can either do one of each or two of each. As you already know, with Magician's right hand, you can negate your opponent's first spell card or effect that resolves while you control a spellcaster, and then destroy it. For left, you'd have to negate the first trap or effect that resolves each turn while you control a spellcaster. So the good thing about this is you already have these two negating the first spell and trap. And then your monsters that already negate spell and trap and monster effects. So either way it go, you're gonna have a wide variety of negation. Next we got Soul Pendulum, and this one is very good. Uh, you can target two cards in your pendulum zones, change each target's pendulum scale by one, and each time your pendulum monster is pendulum summoned, place one counter on this card. Pendulum monsters on the field gain 300 for each counter on on this card. You can remove three counters from this card during your main phase, and you can conduct one pendulum summon of a monster in addition to your pendulum summon. So the fact that this card gets counters, and technically speaking, you can also move counters to this card, or have it to where you can take counters from this card to activate effects. That's really good. So I would suggest playing one or maybe even two of this. And either way it go, it's only gonna plus you up from there. Uh Play one swords to where you'll survive for 3 turns without any attacks from your opponent. Lightning Vortex, discard one card and destroy all face up monsters my opponent controls. And I only play one because, I mean, I would always play more, but at that point, it's bad if you activate it and you don't have anything for fodder. So we play one Scapegoat for the 4 sheep tokens, and they can't be tributed for a tribute summon. And you can't special summon the turn you activate it. But if you want to be cheeky, activate it during your opponent's turn, you get all your spell counters from there too. We play one terraforming since it's limited to one to search for your field spells. We play one called by the grave in order to target one card on your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if I do, till the end of the turn, its effects are negated, and the activated effects on the field with the same original name. And the last spell we have for today is the Moon Mirror Shield. Now, for this, if you want to be real cheeky, attach this to any monster that you have. It'll always be 100 more than the monster that it's going to attack. And finally, for the traps, the only trap I play is Infinite Impermanence. And with this, really good. It's even better than breakthrough skill. Blah. Um, you can target one face of monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, and if it was set before activation and is on the field at resolution for the rest of the turn, all spell or trap cards in this column is negated. If you control no cards, you can activate this from hand. So it's good if it were to be a first turn negation if it's your opponent's turn before you even go. That way you can make sure that you can disrupt what they're doing in order for you to be able to do something on your turn. So it's really good. Now as for your extra deck, the way I like to play mine, I like to play a little safe and a little risky. I play 2 Underclock Takers. This one, once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls and one monster that this card points to. The opponent's target loses attack equal to the attack of the target that this monster points to until the end of its turn. So if you want to make sure that you can run over your opponent's cards, definitely play this card. I play 2. That way it won't be too clogging in my extra deck. I play 3 of Daybreaker, the Shining Magical Warrior. For him, if this is Link Summon, I can place one spell counter on it. It gains 300 attack for each spell counter on it. And if a spellcaster is special summoned to a zone this points to, place one spell counter on this card. I can remove 2 spell counters from this card, target one card on the field, and destroy it. So it's really good for when it comes down to just ramping up your tokens for ramping up your spell counters and being able to remove from board. The next card, and I just found it in my collection again, is Akashic Magician. Now with her, she's kind of interesting. If this is Link Summon, I can return all monsters this card points to the hand. Once per turn, I can declare one card name, excavate cards from the top of my deck, equal to the total link rating of the link monsters co-linked with this card. Then, if I excavated any copies of the declared card, add them to my hand. Also, send the remaining cards to the graveyard. So it's really good for trying to get your resources, like say for instance, getting your infinite imperm or getting any of your spell power grasp. Is really good for just getting a free card. Next, we have the Nightmare package. We have Nightmare Phoenix, which for him, you can discard one, target one spell card, spell or trap my opponent controls, destroy it. If it was co-linked, I can draw a card, and co-linked monsters I control cannot be destroyed by battle. We have Unicorn, that ends up discarding, targeting one card on the field, return it to the deck, and if it was co-linked, I can draw a card. This one really stacks a lot for the drawing effect. While any co-linked nightmare monsters are on the field for my normal draw, I can draw one card for each different card name amongst those co-linked nightmare monsters instead of drawing just one card. So yeah, you know how that can go. Next we have Decode Talker. And as everybody knows, Decode gains 500 for each monster it points to. When my opponent activates a card effect that targets a card I control, I can tribute one monster this card points to, negate the activation, and if I do, destroy the card. Next, we play one triple burst. Once per turn during the damage step, when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated, I can negate it. And if this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. During your main phase, except for the turn it was special summoned, I contribute this and target one link 2 or lower monster in my graveyard, special summon it. Then I can special summon one level 4 or lower dragon monster from my hand. So I can't use the last effect, but I can always use it towards the link 2 or lower. So if I want to go for Daybreaker again, I can always go for that. Let me adjust for a bit. So next we have Zephyra Metaltron. And for this card, if a monster this card points to was special summoned from the extra deck is destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, I can add one monster from my graveyard or face up penalty monster from my extra deck to the hand. Okay. I can target one monster on each player's field that was special summoned from the extra deck, except for this card, banish both until the end phase. So it's really good if you want to just try and reset the board. And for the last nightmare monster, we have Nightmare Griffin. Nightmare Griffin has it to where when it's link summoned, I can discard one card, target one spell or trap card in my graveyard, special summon, set it to my field, but it cannot be activated this turn. Then if this card was co-linked, I can draw a card. Special summon monsters on the field cannot activate their effects unless they are linked. So the fact that you can end up locking your opponent out of the extra monster zone and just have it to where it's pointing towards your field, that's really good for keeping your opponent from activating any effects. And for this, I play 2 Borreload, and Borreload has a to where neither player can target this card with monster effects. Once per turn, quick effect, I can target one face-up monster on the field. It loses 500 attack and defense. My opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks an opponent's monster, I can place that opponent's monster in a zone this card points to and take control of it, but send it to the graveyard during the end phase of the next turn. So he's really good for taking control and just using for link fodder. And lastly, we finish things off with Unchained Abomination. This card is amazing. If a card on the field is destroyed by a card effect except by Unchained Abomination, I can target one card on the field, destroy it. When another monster is destroyed by battle, I can target one card on the field, destroy it. During the end phase, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. So that's up to 3 different destruction effects in one turn. Just amazing. So that's the end of my deck profile. I'm sorry it ran on a little long. It's been a long time. But yeah, I hope y'all like. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more. Give me some suggestions. What I can do to boost my deck, make it better. Tell me what you would do in it. And what would you take out and what would you put in it in order to make it better. And yeah. And as for that, This is your boy Ace from They Call Me. I was about to shout my own channel out. From the Unlucky Bros Incorporated, and that's the end of my turn. Peace.